ocean. The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present. This isn't just a maxim for monarchs. It applies to every relationship you've ever held dear. Recall those you trusted implicitly, friends sworn to be there forever, colleagues who lauded your work when you were equals, lovers who once couldn't conceive of life without you. How many vanished when your circumstances changed? How many fell silent when you needed them most? We construct elaborate narratives to soften this blow. They're just busy. They're going through something. They didn't mean to hurt me. But the true gentle excuses. People gravitate towards what benefits them. And when your presence no longer fuels their ego, status, or security, they drift away. Machiavelli didn't despise humanity, he simply refused to sugarcoat its reality. He observed the court of Florence not as a bastion of honor, but as a masquerade where nobles showered each other with public praise while secretly plotting each other's downfall. And here's the unsettling part. The more powerful you become, the more smiles you attract, and the more hidden daggers. This dynamic hasn't changed in the modern world. Loyalty often wears the disguise of friendship. But look closer, does this person stand with you because they believe in your essence, or because they derive safety, status, or support from your approval? If your influence evaporated tomorrow, would their phone still ring? This isn't meant to embitter you. It's meant to awaken you. Once you recognize loyalty as a strategy, not an inherent virtue, you cease to be manipulated by it. You stop mistaking convenience for true character. And you begin to observe people with radically different eyes. You stop asking, why did they abandon me? Instead, you ask, why was I useful to them? This is the bedrock of Machiavellian self-defense, detached from the illusion that people are loyal to you. They are loyal to their perception of you, their needs, their aspirations, their self-interest. And when that illusion no longer serves them, your bond will, inevitably, dissolve. The path forward, strategic detachment. So, what action do you take? You cease trading your loyalty for validation. You stop sacrificing yourself for those who view you merely as an asset. You build alliances, not fragile attachments. You lead with value, not desperate dependence. Machiavelli understood that a wise individual moves through life like a grandmaster on a chessboard, not emotionally reactive, but relentlessly strategic. He doesn't hate the opposing pieces, he simply comprehends their function. And so should you. This doesn't demand the abandonment of love, friendship, or community. It demands the removal of the blindfold, seeing people as they truly are, not as you desperately wish them to be. Because in a world teeming with manipulation, the rarest form of power isn't deception. It's clarity. Betrayal, human nature under pressure. Have you noticed how quickly allegiances shift in the crucible of crisis? A misspoken word, a misinterpreted post, a subtle dip in status, and suddenly, those who once lauded you are gone, silent, or, chillingly, arrayed against you. This isn't necessarily betrayal. This is human nature under pressure. Machiavelli famously advised rulers to maintain power not through love, but through calculated fear. Why? Because he knew fear is infinitely more predictable than affection. Fear, unlike fleeting adoration, often remains loyal even when love has withered and died. In stark terms, people are more reliable when they need something from you than when they like you. It's a harsh truth. But it's profoundly liberating. Once you internalize this, you stop bleeding for fair-weather companions. You stop exhaustively explaining yourself to those determined to misunderstand you. Most importantly, you stop being shocked when loyalty evaporates the instant you cease to be advantageous. You begin to move like a tactician, kind, but never naive, open, but never blind, generous, but never exploitable. This is the first law of Machiavellian power: don't depend on loyalty. Understand its inherent expiration date. No one is your friend, not in the idealized way you might hope. But once you accept this, truly, deeply accept it, you gain the most formidable advantage of all: independence from illusion. Kindness, a double-edged sword. We're raised to believe kindness is an intrinsic virtue, a universal good, that being gentle, accommodating, and agreeable will open the door and earn every ounce of respect. But Machiavelli knew better. He understood that kindness, when not wielded strategically, is frequently mistaken for weakness. He recognized that in the theater of power, niceness isn't admired, it's exploited. This isn't a call to cruelty. It's a stark warning: if your goodness isn't forged with strength, it's your leash. We've all witnessed this narrative unfold. The person who constantly bends backward to please others, always agreeable, perpetually saying yes. They believe they're embodying nobility, earning adoration. But beneath the surface, a different dynamic takes hold. Harmless. Predictable. Replaceable. They start to expect compliance. They relentlessly test boundaries. They scoff at silence. And the harder they try to please, the more invisible they become. Machiavelli would identify this as a fatal flaw, because it willingly surrenders your power to those who care least about you. When you lead with niceness, hoping it will protect you, you become a tool. A stepping stone. A phantom people forget once they've extracted what they needed. But when you lead with presence, a quiet, unshakable sense of inner strength, you command attention. Respect. Even a healthy dose of fear. Machiavelli argued that it is better to be if you cannot be both. Not because fear is inherently virtuous, but because fear establishes distance. It breeds respect. It creates impenetrable boundaries. Love, on the other hand, often invites exploitation, especially in a world where most individuals think in terms of advantage, not abstract virtue. And here's the chilling truth: people frequently misinterpret kindness as naivety. They perceive softness as submission. And unless you master the delicate balance of empathy with authority, they will inevitably walk over you, and then resent you when you finally stand your ground. Escaping the niceness trap. So, how do you break free from this insidious trap? You must learn to master what Machiavelli termed appearance, to be kind when it serves your purpose, cold when it shields you, generous when it fortifies your position, and ruthless when your very survival demands it. This isn't about living a disingenuous life. It's about recognizing that in a world teeming with opportunists, absolute transparency is a dangerous liability. The person who bares their soul to everyone ends up betrayed. The person who exposes their entire strategy gets sabotaged. The person who pleads for approval never truly earns it. Niceness without strategy is a lamb wandering into a wolf's den. Why does kindness so often attract abuse? Because many individuals are constantly testing the boundaries of every person they encounter, consciously or subconsciously. They push. They prod. They press, relentlessly searching for where the line is drawn. And if you never draw that line, they conclude that no such boundary exists. They won't vocalize it, but internally, the thought forms: this won't stop me. This person fears confrontation. I can take more. And they will. Not because they are inherently evil, but because people respond to what you tolerate. If you permit someone to interrupt you, they will continue. If you perpetually give more than you receive, they will come to expect it. If you never utter the word no, you are not seen as generous, you are seen as weak. Niceness becomes a self-imposed cage. Machiavelli's strategic kindness. So, what would Machiavelli advise? He would tell you to cherish your kindness, but to weaponize it. Let it be a strategy, not an automatic default. Offer your generosity only to those who genuinely respect the value of your gift. Speak softly, but understand when to deploy silence as a potent form of power. Assist others, but never at the expense of your own dignity. And most importantly, be unpredictable. Machiavelli believed unpredictability was one of the most powerful forms of protection. When people cannot anticipate your response, when they are uncertain whether your smile conceals steel, they tread carefully. They respect your personal space. But if your response is always passive, you become a script they've already memorized, a puppet whose strings they can effortlessly manipulate. It's being feared with being evil, that strength and kindness are mutually exclusive. But that is a fabrication spun by those who dread losing control over you. True power resides in embodying both, a person capable of profound kindness, yet unafraid to inspire awe and even fear. A person who leads with compassion but never bows for scraps. A person who smiles, but not for the purpose of being liked. This is how you break free from the niceness trap, not by becoming cruel, but by becoming. So remember this. Your kindness should be a gift, not an obligation. Your empathy should be chosen, not expected. And your approval should be earned, never assumed. Because when kindness is inextricably paired with strength, it becomes divine. But when kindness is all you are, it becomes your prison. The inevitability of betrayal. Betrayal rarely originates from strangers. It emerges from those you once shared laughter with, confided in, and fiercely protected. And that, chillingly, is what makes it so utterly devastating. It doesn't feel like an overt attack. It feels like a slow, insidious poison, subtly administered behind a familiar smile. Machiavelli grasped a fundamental truth that most people stubbornly refuse to accept: loyalty is not eternal. It is conditional, fragile, and perpetually negotiable. The notion that your friends, your partners, even your most trusted confidants, could one day act against your interests is profoundly unsettling. But it is also the undeniable genesis of wisdom. Because once you comprehend the chilling psychology of betrayal, you cease expecting unconditional loyalty, and you begin constructing an unbreakable strategy. Let's dissect this further. Human beings are inherently opportunistic. We are fundamentally wired to seek comfort, security, validation, and power, and we will frequently switch allegiances the moment an alternative path offers a greater reward. We cleverly cloak this tendency in morality, in lofty ideals, in noble justifications. But at its core, the mechanism is simple: people pursue advantage. And advantage, by its very nature, is fluid. One day, you are the dominant player on the board, the gravitational center around which others orbit. The next, a new force emerges, more useful, more valuable, more threatening. And in that precise moment, loyalty subtly, instinctively, shifts. That friend who once sang your praises begins to whisper behind your back. That ally who swore eternal support stops returning your calls. That lover who once uttered, "forever," starts to withdraw, their gaze wandering to someone else. They don't betray you because you failed them. They betray you because they perceive a greater gain from someone else. And the depth of your shared history? It becomes utterly irrelevant. In the brutal arena of power, history is merely a memory, and people will ruthlessly rewrite it in a heartbeat if it serves their immediate survival. Machiavelli's chilling admonition: never trust in affection alone. He advised rulers, and by extension, anyone who wields influence, to assume that betrayal is an ever-present possibility. Not to succumb to paranoia, but to remain perpetually prepared. The gravest error you can commit is to presume loyalty is a permanent fixture. Because here's the unvarnished truth. When your power wanes, so too does their loyalty. When your usefulness ends, so too does their presence. When their envy escalates, so too does their silent desire to see you fall. This isn't cynicism. It's psychological realism.